Hello, welcome to Ekascloud AWS Zero to Hero series. And today we are going to discuss about EFS, Elastic File System. It's a storage technology used in AWS Cloud. So before going to the EFS, let's look into the different types of storage available in AWS. I'll show you a diagram which I downloaded from the internet. Okay, so if you broadly look into the AWS cloud, there are mainly three types of storage technologies. We have AWS EBS, AWS S3, and AWS EFS. AWS EBS, Elastic Block Storage, the third one, we already discussed this in our previous classes. And this EBS is basically EBS are used for creating an instance. When you create an instance after selecting the instance types or T2 micro or T3 micro, instance types basically contains a processor and a memory configuration, right? And after selecting that, you have to have a storage to load your operating system and data. So for that purpose we are using the EBS. Okay, again, if you have a EC2 instance and if you provisioned an EBS volume in another availability zone, suppose if you have a two availability zone and you already have a storage available in another availability zone, and you have an EC2 instance in another availability zone, you cannot connect it. You cannot directly attach an EBS volume in a different to an EC2 instance in a different availability zone. First disadvantage. Second, suppose if you need a large storage volume, you can't have it in EBS. Why? Because we have seen different types of EBS volume. There are GP2, GP3, IO1, IO2, ST1, SC1, right? If you don't remember, just refer my previous classes. So GP1, GP2, the maximum supported storage volume is 16 TB. And in IO2, you will get maximum 64 TB. Suppose if you need a storage volume which is more than 64 TB, you don't have the option. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, the maximum supported IOPS, the number of input output operation per second and throughput, this is limited in EBS. Another main drawback, suppose if you have 100 GB storage and if you need more storage, you have to again go back to the AWS cloud and you need to provision it and you need to manage it. So managing is a headache. But again, you cannot create a shared, I'm not saying you cannot, yes we can. If you need a shared file system, shared file storage, you have to do a lot of work behind if you are using EBS. To simplify this solution, we have the EFS, Elastic File System. In Elastic File System, it is actually outside of the availability zone in a region. So you can access this EFS from any of the availability zone. Again, you can connect to many number of instances to the same instance EFS storage. Okay, more than 100 concurrent connection you can make to EFS storage. That's a big advantage. Another important thing is like the file system, the file storage size. You don't need to manage the storage. You don't need to provision. You don't need to work on the backend to provision the storage. This is a fully managed service. You just create a name and attach using a mount point. Again, mount point you will get after you create it. Just use the name from your instance and connect to the store, attach. That's it. You will be able to use the shared storage. It is massively scalable, and the the IOPS compared to the EBS, it will support more than I believe 300,000, more than 300,000 IOPS. So it's higher, performance is higher compared to the EBS. Hope you are clear with all these points. Another thing, this is working with protocol NFS. Okay, NFS is not a compatible file system for Windows. So EFS service cannot use in Windows environments. You have to have a Linux machines for configuring the uh, EFS. I hope this is clear. I will show you a demo. Let's go to the practicals. Okay. So this is the lab we will be doing today. We'll log into North Virginia region. You know that in North Virginia we have 6 availabilities on. But in this case, in this demo, we will create two EC2 instance in two availabilities on. One availability, one instance in each availability zone. Okay, and we will create an EFS service, EFS storage in the region, and we'll connect. We'll mount. Basically, we will use the word mount. We will mount the storage in each instance so that the application access the storage from any availability zone. That's the basic idea about the EFS. Again, please keep in mind, you don't need to manage the storage. For managing the storage, you don't need to attach or you don't need to increase. It is massively scalable storage, massively scalable storage. Okay, you don't need to provision any EC2 instance to manage the EFS. As simple it is. So let's log into AWS and move to the North Virginia region. I have logged into AWS console. Currently it is showing Mumbai region. I'm moving to North Virginia region. Okay. So for this lab, where is the diagram? Let me open the diagram once again. Okay, so for this lab, we have to create EC2 instances, one in each availability zone. I mean, two availability zone. So let's create a EC2 instance. So creating an EC2 instance is simple. If you are not familiar, please watch my previous videos. Going to EC2. Oh, sorry. By mistake, I clicked on EFS. Going to EC2. And instance running 0. I'm going to launch an EC2 instance. Okay, currently I don't have any instance running, so I'm clicking on launch instances section. Let's name this instance to Linux. I'm going to create a web server 1. Okay, so Linux web server 1, and I told you Windows will not support the NFS protocol, so we are supposed to create a Linux machine. Let's go with the Amazon Linux, and for the free tier, let's use the default instance type, which is T2 micro. And regarding the key pair, I'm taking the existing key pair, and I told you the first instance should be in the 1A availability zone. So since this is the first instance, since I have the default VPC, I'm not changing it. 1A, so this is the default availability 1A. Sorry, in default VPC, this is the 1A availability zone. Okay, so auto assign public IP, I'm enabling. I'm going to create a since I already have a security group. In this security group, all the SSH, RDP and HTTP is enabled, so I don't need to worry. I'm selecting an existing security group. If you don't know about security group, please refer my previous video. Okay, so I selected the security group. Now in advanced, what I'm going to do, I'm going to promote this server as a web server. So to create a web server, you know that to promote a web server, we need to install the Apache HTTPD. So I have already a website running in GitHub. So to download the web server in GitHub, I need to install Git first, and after that I need to install the Apache. So I'm using a command. I'm using the utilizing the user data section to configure all these. Okay, I'm writing the code for that. Slash bin slash bash. Since I'm using the bash shell scripting, dnf install httpd. This will install the httpd software. I mean the web server, and also git minus y systemctl, and this is for the systemctl start http. This will start the Apache web service. Systemctl enable httpd. This will enable the httpd service. That's it. So basically I'm creating a web server, but web server and starting the web service, but empty page. There is no page. Number of instance one, because I need, as per the diagram, I need only one instance, right? One instance I'm creating in 1A availability zone. You can see 1A here. 1A. Okay. Hope this is clear, and I'm launching the instance now. While this running, let's create another instance in the, I'll show you the diagram again. So we need to create another instance in the availability zone 1B. Okay. So let's create that. It's running. Let's go to the launch instances section once again. Let's name this as Linux Web Server 2. I'm selecting Amazon Linux, T2 Micro, key pair as the existing key pair, and this has to be in the availability zone 1B. So here is the availability zone 1B. Auto and public IP, enabled it. Attaching the firewall, I have an existing firewall group, so which will allow the RDP, HTTP, and SSH. And here as well, sorry, here as well, I'm going to enable the or install the HTTPD and Git service. So for that, let me type the commands hash bin bash dnf install httpd git minus y systemctl start httpd systemctl enable httpd. Okay, that's it. And the number of licenses is 1, because I need only one instance in this availability zone. Clicking on okay. So now we have two instances, each running in different availability zone. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to test the website, the HTTPD Apache web service. Since I installed and started the service, it should be available. But since I haven't configured any page, we will be getting a basic response, that is, it works. From both the server, I'm getting a positive response, meaning it is working. Okay, let's go to the diagram which we discussed earlier, the lab diagram. So now both the instances are ready and we have installed the respective web services. Now what we are going to do, we need to create an EFS, Elastic File Storage, with a name. After configuring the EFS, we will upload our website at this storage and repoint the HTML var www HTML point to this location with a different page so that we can identify, right? So this is what we are going to do now. As I told you, EFS support the NFS protocol. Okay, let's move to create the EFS service now. So for that, I have opened the EFS service. It's nothing but you just click search for EFS and you will get it. So the page will load like this. Okay, so here we have to create a file system. My file system is showing empty. I'm going to create an EFS with the name. Suppose this contains web server data, right? So demo EFS web data. This is what I'm going to give. It's just for identification. You can also select I mean create a name based on your requirement. So demo EFS web data, and this is the VPC. I have only one VPC in this region, and in your if you are creating this for your enterprise, create the EFS in the respective VPC based on your requirement. Okay, I'm just creating it, refreshing. Okay, so the uh, elastic file storage got created. Initially the size of the EFS is 6 KB, and the size will get increased based on our requirement. Like if you are putting a 1 GB file, this will auto grow. So that's about the elastic file storage immediately after creating. This is the 6 KB size. Okay, so created the EFS. Now let's move to create a security group. Okay, so basically let me go to the diagram again. So when you create a security group, who all are supposed to access? Basically the EFS is configured with the network file system protocol. I want to allow only NFS protocol to access EFS, nothing else. So I need to create a security group which allows only NFS. Let's go to the EC2 section and create a security group, and we will attach to the EFS. So for creating the security groups, let's go back to the EC2, click on security. Okay, so let's create a security group first. I'm going to, since this is being used by the EFS, I'm adding EFS and EFS security group, and the description I'm typing this is for EFS, and NFS port is opened. It's just for an identification. By default, from EFS, all the ports are opened. I'm not going to touch the outbound rule. I'm going to add an inbound rule wherein I have to enable the NFS. So I selected NFS. The port number is 2049. From anywhere, I'm enabling 0000. So that means from anywhere this EFS can be accessed, but only the port number 2049. That is an NFS port number. Just creating the security group. Now next thing is we need to attach the security group to the EFS service. So let's go back to the EFS service window. Okay, and there is EFS. Oh, okay. Going back to the EFS window. Okay, so this is the EFS which we created. I'm selecting and clicking on the file system, EFS file system. To attach the security group, click on the network section. You know that we are connected to the North Virginia region, and in North Virginia there are 6 availability zones. So by default, immediately after you create the elastic file storage, there is a link. This will be linked to all the availability zones. So you can see the link. a mount target. So using this target, it is connected to all the availability zone. Currently, we have instances running in 1A and 1B. So we are concentrating on these two availability zone. And as I told you, when we create an EFS, elastic file storage, by default, a mount point will get created and which will be attached to all the availability zone, as well as there is a security group, default security group. What we are going to do, we are going to remove the security default security group attached to all the mount points which are pointing to all the availability zone. Since we have already created a security group, we will map the security group which we created. So just removing the security group attached to the availability zone 1A and 1B and adding the security group which I created, so EFSSG. Since we are doing a demo based on 1A and 1B, I'm not worried about the other 4 availability zones. We are not going to use it. So I'm leaving those availability zone and security group as it is. Now what you can see in the screen, I have removed the default security group and added the security group which I created. You know that in the security group the NFS port is allowed, only the NFS port is allowed. So that part is done. I'm clicking on save. Okay, so we created and we attached to it. Now the next thing is, let me open the diagram. We have a web server running, web service, and web server is running on this instance and this instance, and it is using the, we got a page, it works, and it is actually showing the page from the respective root EBS volume. What we are going to do, we are going to repoint whenever a request comes to the server asking the contents of this HTML folder, it should redirect the content to the EFS folder. This is what we are going to achieve. Similarly, in the another the server and instance running in the first availability zone, if any request comes to this server asking the contents of this folder, we will redirect those traffic. We will redirect the folder to the EFS service. Okay, to do that, we have to get the mount point. So basically, we will create a mount point which will mount the HTML folder to this EFS storage. So to get the mount point, go to the EFS file system which we created and click on attach. There you can see the mount point. The only change you have to do, since we are using var http var www http, so we have to remap this EFS with root. I'll show you that. Okay, so here it is in the command, it is showing the command generated by the EFS service, it is showing EFS here. So in last, since we are using the folder HTML /var www/html, we have to use this folder name to mount with the EFS. So I'm copying this command. Since I have already connected to the each Linux server, I'm going to execute it. Okay, instead of EFS, as I told you, okay, I'm going to add /var www html. So what will happen? The folder will be linked to the EFS which we created. Okay, that's done. Same thing I'm going to do here. Var www html. That's done. Let's check the contents now. This is just a mounting.
So whenever if someone is okay, let's check the contents in the var html var www html folder. There is nothing, the content is empty. Same we can do it from the first box as well. Var html, it is empty. Okay, now we mounted. Let's check what will happen now. It's showing the same page. Since it is empty, we are getting the default response. That is, it works. Okay, so I'll open the diagram again. What we are going to do now, we are going to upload some website to this location. Okay, after upload, we will try the IP address of this instance and the instance running in the second availability zone. So as per the configuration, when we try to access the page, this will redirect to the EFS and whatever content it will display. So I have a sample website. I'm going to upload it. I'm going to download that sample website to the EFS. I'll show you how to do that. Again, we don't need to download, or we don't need to download the data into EFS, because if we copy the data into HTML, this will redirect to the EFS. It's just a link. Okay. So let's clone the data. Like, yes, you do git clones, git clone. Since we already installed the git, this command will work. Git clone https colon github.com slash cherish slash site underscore particles dot git. Whatever content in the GitHub, this should be downloaded to var www html. As I told you, this var www html is just a link. Whatever data you are downloading here, it will go to the EFS share. See, it is cloning. Yeah, now it is downloaded. We don't need to do this from the second box, because since var www html is pointing to the same EFS share. See, if you are listing, see, let me list the content in var www html. Now there is a content. Okay, let me try the same command from here. Var www html. Oh, sorry, since I typed the name, folder name incorrectly. Okay, see, the both content, that means the both server var www html is pointing to the EFS storage, the EFS which we created and we mounted it. That's the reason it is showing. Now if we try to access the website, let's see what will happen. See, the page got changed. So now it is displaying the contents in the EFS storage. Okay, so that's about the EFS configuration. Hope this is clear.